Right into this. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Edson Barboza, who this past weekend at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, at UFC Fight Night Yusuff versus Barboza, defeated his very game opponent in Sodiq Yusuff by unanimous decision. The scorecards read 49-46, 48-46, and 48-46. Two of the judges gave Yusuff the first round as a 10-8. The other judge was a regular 10-9 in favor of Yusuff in the first round. Barboza mounted quite the comeback and on all three judges' scorecards won the remaining 4 rounds and ended up basically routing Sodiq Yusuff. Mark, let me start it off with you first. Give us your take of this fight overall and on the warrior spirit of Edson Barboza.
Firstly, just because I just heard you say it, the dude that did not score round 1 10-8 for Yusuff is just inexplicable. That's as clear 10-8 as you can get. Thankfully, that didn't end up mattering in scoring of the fight. But yeah, what a crazy friggin' fight this was, and what a showcase for everything that is Edson Barboza. Sodiq came out like a man possessed. He looked unbelievable in round 1. He had Edson in all kinds of trouble. But to me, Edson just came out really flat. Like even from the first couple exchanges, like his guard was not up. He was allowing himself to continually eat right hands. And, Sodiq was just taking the opportunities that were there for him. And I feel like sometimes this happens in fights where, bell rings and one guy's on and the other guy's just not quite there yet and he needs to kind of get into the fight. And that's what I felt like I was watching from Edson. He just, I don't know, he didn't look defensively ready to go. And it almost cost him because it nearly could have been stopped at a certain point there. Thankfully for him, his chin held up just enough to keep Herb from calling that. And, then he recovered a bit. And from that point on, I think we saw more of the fight I was expecting to see from Edson Barboza, which is an elite level striker, being able to edge out what Sodiq himself brings into the octagon. From round 2, Edson realized a couple things. He realized that he couldn't be moving backwards because Sodiq is too good when you let him advance and be the aggressor in the fight. So he switched that up and made Sodiq be the one moving backwards, as often as he could. And he realized he had to invest to the body. And he did both of those things, and it changed the fight. And the body was constant, just teeps and switch kicks and shovel hooks. I mean, there was a point where Sodiq almost knew if he threw a right hand, he was getting hit with a shot to the body. And it really added up because Sodiq started to slow down a bit as that fight went on. I mean, of course, he also ate an absurd classic Edson Barboza spinning wheel kick that I'm sure played a part in the slowing down as well. And he had to survive that. But all in all, Edson managed to take over that fight. And the only thing I'll say is that I did still think Sodiq won round 2, and I've watched it a few times, and I have always thought that he won round 2. And if that's the case and you're not scoring round 3 as a 10-8 for Edson, then that fight would have been a draw. And none of those judges did give Edson a 10-8 in round 3. So, I don't know, I guess a little bit of a gripe there for Sodiq. But if it would only mean a draw, and if I had to pick a rightful winner, I do think I would have said Edson. So, props to him. What a warrior this man is to battle back from the spot he was in round 1, and he adds another classic fight and another classic win to the ongoing resume at 37 years old.
Yeah, Omar, what are your thoughts? You're muted.
When I was watching it live, I actually missed the first round, and I came into it right at the very end of the first round when Barboza was already against the fence and the bell went off, and I see him get up, and Barboza's face all fucked up, and I was like, oh, Jesus. And I'm hearing the commentary talk about it, how Barboza almost, basically just got lit up for the whole round and all this stuff. So I was like, well, this isn't great. This is not going in the direction we want it to go. And then the second round came out, and yeah, I mean, you could definitely make a case for Yusuff in that round, but I thought Barboza won that round. I thought he was the more aggressive fighter. I thought he landed a bit more. I think the real edge that Yusuff had, especially in those earlier rounds, was the power. But the body shots and the work that Barboza was putting into that fight, not headhunting, I thought was very, very, very countable as far as him scoring in that fight. And I thought it continued on. I thought it picked up. I thought he had the advantage in the second round when it came to the strikes landed and the strikes thrown. And I thought it got worse and worse as the rounds went on. And by the end of that round, I thought round 2 was close. So by the end of that fight, I was like, this is either going to be a win for Edson or it's going to be a draw. And when it was a win, I was happy for him. I thought it was a well-deserved win, especially coming back from such an ass beating in the first round, which I went back obviously and rewatched, and I didn't think it was as bad as they made it seem in the commentary, but it was not great. He definitely got his ass beat in the first round for sure. But they made it seem like he got knocked out cold twice and came back to life and shit. It wasn't that bad.
There was a moment in the first round where I thought that he looked like he was out on his feet for a few moments, and I was like, "Oh, this might get stopped right now."
Same.
There was one right hand that Edson's eyes just went everywhere but where they needed to be.
Yeah, right.
He got hit. He got cracked a few times by Yusuff. And Yusuff looks like he hits a truck.
Oh, yeah.
And Edson barely landed a thing in that round, which is why you have to score that round at 10-8.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Round
and it was
3 is different because, yes, he had Sodiq super hurt in round 3, but a lot of the round prior to that was competitive. In round 1, you didn't have that. It was all Yusuff the whole time.
And I think you have to take into account how close that fight was to being finished, right? Especially in round 1. Round 3, you could make a case either way, but round 1 for sure, you have to take into consideration how close that fight was to being stopped.
I mean, I think what saved Barboza was that his legs never stopped pedaling. He kept just sort of pedaling backwards and trying to get away. And I think if Yusuff landed 2 more really clean, hard shots, I think Dean would have been justified absolutely to step in there.
Well, to Edson's credit, too, Edson knows how to play the game. I think if this was somebody who didn't have as much experience as Edson, he probably would have gotten knocked the fuck out. We never would have made it out of that first round. But Edson knew how to kind of close distance, how to kind of smother and nullify and basically try to run the clock out a little bit just so he can get his shit back together. I thought he did a good job at it, too, because that was something that you have – when you watch things like that, you have to know that that's from experience. That's not something that you just can do or know how to do.
Yeah, I didn't think that Sodiq did a bad job either. He said in the post-fight that he wishes he would have been a little more poised and picked his shots better. But I thought he did. I'm not sure there's a lot he could have changed there. He didn't rush it. He was picking his shots. Edson just did really well to survive those moments. Sometimes you're not going to get the guy out of there.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, too, how much of his cardio was compromised from round 1 because he didn't seem like he was going crazy in round 1. We've seen guys really lose their shit off of a rock and really, gas themselves out. But he got significantly slower as the rounds went on. The body shots definitely had something to do with it, but round 1 seemed to be definitely his best round. Obviously.
Yeah.
I think Edson making him back up changed a lot, and it was how many body shots did they say it was? I forget now. It was some absurd number.
Dude, I don't know, man. And they didn't even look. The real issue with those body shots is they don't really look that bad, and they don't feel that bad when you're getting hit with them. But when you getting hit with one is not that serious. Getting hit with one every other 30 seconds sucks, and it adds up. You know what I mean? And your body doesn't get any stronger as you're getting hit by them at that point. So it tears into you, man. It really does.
I will say though, it never seemed like throughout that whole fight. Correct me if I'm not recalling something. I remember thinking, man, Yusuff is just eating all of these body shots, and not maybe he has a great poker face, or
no,
maybe
that's got to be
great midsection conditioning.
I mean, it's probably a little bit of both, but like I said, at the end of the day, with as many as he got hit with, there's no way he wasn't feeling it. But he had a great poker face. I mean, nothing looked like it fazed him at all. Nothing.
Yeah. He could take a shot, man. He could take a shot.
Yeah.
He took that spinning wheel kick. How about that spinning wheel kick, Omar?
He had more balance than Kevin Lee did when he got smashed with that shit.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I was rooting so hard for Barboza, I must admit. And I kind of wanted to get that finish in that moment. I was like, oh, my God, he did it. He got another one.
Dude, if he did it with another one, that would have been nuts.
But he was just too gassed. He just like kind of swarmed him, then he kind of fell on top of him, and then he suddenly is going for like a Darce, and the whole world is like, no.
He went for a couple different chokes and was never close, and it was just like too much time passed where Sodiq got to get his shit together.
Right. Oh, dude, I'm so glad I remember this. So my wife actually watched this with me, and she never watches fights. She never watches fights with me, and the main event was about to start, and I did my husbandly duty to sort of like try to set the stage for her. Right. So Barboza is walking out, and I'm like, oh, I love this guy. And I go, he's a veteran, he's a this, he's a that. And she goes, so he's not afraid to kill. And I was like, what? She goes, he's a veteran. I was like, you think he's like an army veteran? No.
That's incredible.
I was crying.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
By the way, we all picked Edson, and he was the betting underdog, so props to us.
Hey. What a great fight.
We definitely fucked up some other pick, though, all of us. And I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was.
It was Yanez, man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Let's talk about now where these two featherweights go from here. Let's talk about the winner, Edson Barboza, man. Mark, what do you think is next for him?
I think there are two different routes you can take with Edson Barboza at this point. The first one, the more realistic one, is a returning Calvin Kattar. I think that's a surefire war. I think they're at similar spots. A lot of the other guys around them are booked already. I think that makes sense. Another option that I have heard Edson mention, at least one of these guys, and I don't hate, is to reward him with a main event type of fight after the career he's had and the win that he just pulled off, and give him either Max Holloway or Yair Rodriguez. I know Max may end up fighting Topuria, but Max or Yair, he's never fought either one of them, and either one of them would be absolutely awesome. Max is the name he keeps mentioning, by the way, but Yair would be equally cool.
That would be great. Omar.
Listen, I love Edson, but like, can't just like casually call out the number one contender.
Why? Max has fought everyone else. He's just taking fun fights at this point. He just fought Zombie.
I mean, yes, but that fight should have never happened.
They just tried to book him against Josh Emmett. That's even stupider than Edson.
And it didn't work. It didn't stick.
Both took this fight.
Well, the MMA gods did what they were supposed to do, and here you are trying to reverse the process.
Look, Edson's a legend, and I would love that fight. You would love that fight?
Disagree.
Come on.
You misunderstand.
How fun would Edson and Yair be?
Yes, you misunderstand me wanting to see it to what would make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Dude, these guys aren't booked. They need fights. The rest of the featherweights are booked.
If Edson and Yair get booked, I want them to make an agreement to only fight each other using spinning wheel kicks. It's the only move allowed.
Evloev's fighting Allen. Chikadze's fighting Emmett. Blah, blah, blah. Topuria is fighting either Volk or Max. Ortega's still hurt until God knows when. The only unbooked guys are Yair and Kattar, and potentially Max if the Topuria thing doesn't happen.
God, I would honestly, at this point, I would probably give him Leroy Murphy at this point. I know he's behind him, but he's got momentum.
Mark says no.
He's in the top 15 now.
I like Leroy Murphy, but fucking how many Edson fights we got left, man? Give me something crazy.
Isn't he like 37, 38,
yes,
37?
37.
And he's at a lightweight class.
Specimen. He is a specimen.
Dude. Reward this man.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about Sodiq, man. Omar, what do you think? What could be next for Sodiq at 45?
Well, if you're not going to give Leroy Murphy to goddamn Edson, then give Leroy Murphy to goddamn Sodiq. Give somebody to Leroy Murphy.
I still think him and Caceres is such a good fight. I thought they were going to make that fight. Yeah, I'll cop out. I'll give you two choices again for Sodiq. I think you could go with another guy who just lost recently and Dan Ige. They're ranked super close to each other. Or you could reward someone on the way up. Omar gave you Leroy Murphy. I'm in a similar place, which is that if Nathaniel Wood was to win this Saturday, I think Nathaniel would.
Okay. In the interest of time, since we have a big pay-per-view to cover later on, let's move on. Congrats to Edson, man. Always look forward to his next fight, man. Always. What a warrior. What a legend. Okay, in the co-main event of this UFC Fight Night, in the women's flyweight division, Viviane Araujo gets arguably the biggest win of her career over Jennifer Maia. By unanimous decision, the scorecards all read 29-28 in favor of Araujo. Omar, start us off this time. Give us your take of Viviane getting this big win.
Yeah, so I've seen online that there are people that believe that Jennifer Maia won that first round. I don't think I agree. I know I don't agree, I should say. I had round 1 and round 2 for Araujo. Obviously, she shit the bed in round 3. Seemed like she was pretty gassed in round 3, and Jennifer Maia took advantage and did what she did. But I thought the first 2 rounds were pretty clear for Araujo. I thought she was the more active fighter. I thought round 1 was closer in comparison to round 2. But I thought Viviane Araujo took round 1 and round 2 pretty clearly, in my opinion.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think
Really?
Viviane Araujo won that fight at all. I don't think you could even rewatch round 1 and tell me that you think she won that round. The rest of the fight's clear, as you said. Viviane gets a great takedown in round 2. She takes Maia's back. Maia can never shake her. Obviously, that's Araujo's round. Round 3, Maia finally ups the aggression on the feet, gets some takedowns of her own. You wonder what could happen if she fought that way the whole time, but she didn't. And she took that round without much question. So it came down to round 1, and yeah, Araujo had like a couple nice flush shots, but she lost the 5 minutes. Like, you can't just ignore all the work that happens in the round because you saw a couple shots that made you go, ooh. Like, I don't know. I don't like it. I'm shocked that not one of those judges could see that Maia won the first round. All 3 of them gave it to Araujo. So, I don't know. I tried to rewatch it a couple times. Every time I didn't understand it. Maybe it's me. I thought Maia won. It was a good fight, though. I'd watch those girls again tomorrow. It was very closely matched. They both pushed the whole way through. And Araujo gets probably her biggest name win thus far in the UFC.
Omar, let's start with the winner here, Viviane Araujo. What would you like to see her next opponent be at women's flyweight?
Women's flyweight at this point is also another one that is kind of ridiculous right now. The other thing, too, is Viviane Araujo has fought a lot of women kind of in this area already, win or lose for that matter. Somehow she has not fought Macy Barber, which I think is fucking crazy at this point. So maybe we're at that point where Macy Barber and Araujo need to fight.
Okay, Mark.
I just looked. I guess I'm not alone. 76% of MMA decisions had it for Maia.
I was gonna tell you that. Yeah.
More experts scored it for Araujo. I wonder if it's a live versus rewatch thing, and that obviously the experts are scoring it live. They're entering their scores online, and they're getting recorded as the fight's happening. But for the public to all score it like that, I wonder if it's that, because I watched it, I didn't see it live. So I wonder if it's a difference in that you realize those big shots didn't matter as much when you're watching it back.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will go with an opponent that I feel like I don't hear anyone else really mentioning, and maybe that's because the UFC has Tyler Santos ranked so high compared to where I have her. But I think her against Viviane would be a really fun, competitive fight in all areas.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot. What about Miss Maia? Mark, staying with you.
So she has never fought Lauren Murphy. Feels like we should have seen that by now. They're both vets. They've both been around the block and fought everyone. So that's where I'll go.
Omar?
Damn, I don't hate that, actually. I think the only other direction that I would go at this point is probably somebody like Tracy Cortez. Tracy's on her way up. Jennifer Maia
Nice
slowly on her way down with this recent loss. And I think meeting in the middle probably is not going to hurt. Well, it might, I guess, a little bit.
I don't mind that either at all.
Not at all. Not at all. All right, cool. Let's move on. Moving on down to the men's bantamweight division. And this one was tough to watch on a couple of levels, gentlemen. Jonathan Martinez defeats Adrian Yanez, by TKO via leg kicks. The official time came at 2:26 of the second round. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Jonathan Martinez is an impossible fighter to evaluate. Like, it's just not normal what he brings. Like, it's as if he literally gets to carry a bat in there with him in the form of that left kick. So, like, can he do that to top bantamweights? Maybe. Can he do that to John Jones? Maybe. Like, it's that fucking frightening. I don't know what to make of it. Like, he just kicks whoever the fuck he wants, and they fold into pieces. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously I'm not serious with the John Jones thing, but, like, what is the ceiling on this one single weapon that this man brings into the cage? Yeah. Like, is the antidote just, like, a top-shelf wrestler, and that's what you need to be able to do to shut him down? Maybe, but, I mean, geez, I figured a guy with the footwork of an Adrian Yanez, who you'd have to imagine is preparing for that one specific thing all camp long, could avoid it more than he did, and he couldn't even avoid it a little bit. That leg was getting ripped from the opening bell. And I guess props to Yanez because he was pushing. His hands still did look crispy. He landed a few nice shots. He was obviously trying to get inside and find one that could change the fight, but it wasn't going to happen on this night, man. This night was all Jonathan Martinez, and whatever his ceiling may be, it's time to start taking this dude very seriously.
Omar, as the guy on this show who knows a thing or two about Muay Thai, as a layman, I'm like, isn't he supposed to check those kicks? Talk to me.
You ain't fucking wrong, Mike. You ain't wrong. Look, the reality is checking kicks.
The same thing happened to Cub, though, and Cub's as veteran as it gets.
But here's the thing, too, right? Checking kicks hurts. It hurts everybody. Everybody gets hurt. It's not like you feel nothing, right? I know it gets fun to like look at dudes in Thailand and they're just wailing on each other, and that's totally fine. They've also been conditioning their legs since they were like 2.
Yeah, their legs
so
are
it's
like leather.
That's true.
It's they're literal children over there fighting in rings. You know what I'm saying? Like they're built different for that shit in Thailand. Here, the conditioning is not the same. You got a lot of guys that have never even been touched properly outside of the wrestling room up until they start doing MMA, right? So it's a little different here. With that being said, those kicks were going to fuck anybody up. Those kicks are ridiculous. I mean, it really is terrifying to watch the way that he grinds people's shit out. Because the other thing is the calf kick has become like the secret sauce in MMA. And one of the reasons why they don't do that much in Muay Thai is because of how the stances are. You get a lot of wrestlers who are heavy in their stance, and so the calf kick is easier to come by. But you're also risking getting your shit checked because the shin is right there. You're not really trying to go shin on shin when you're throwing a kick. That's how you end up getting Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman and et cetera, right? So a lot of times you see guys hitting an angle, trying to hit the back of the actual calf, the actual meat of that area. Jonathan Martinez doesn't give a shit. Just kind of like Jan Blachowicz. He just kicks shin to shin. Whoever breaks first breaks. And I think that's the most terrifying part of Jonathan Martinez is there's no real logic to that man's kicks. He's just going to blast you, and he's going to hurt you doing it. And he hit Yanez.
Yeah, go.
Guess we'll go that way, right?
It's going to take me a while.
You speak Spanish, not us.
It took him a minute, man. It took him like I give him credit for going through those leg kicks, right? Because there were a couple times where I think he was like, "Oh, I think I'm done here," but he fought through it, threw back, and kept fighting through it. But it definitely got to a point where his leg just wasn't working anymore. His knee was literally what was getting damaged, not even any other part of his leg. There were other fights in that this night that goddamn thumbs up. There were other fights this night that the same thing happened, where you had guys that were getting kicked right in their leg over and over again. The dude that had the one name, I can't pronounce that kid's name to save my life.
What?
Alatong
Ali.
Yeah. Dude, he got his shit chewed up, but was never able to not move in that fight. And it's just because the damage was in different places, right? You can deal with pain, but an actual joint that just doesn't work anymore, not really much you can do about that. So Jonathan Martinez is deadly with those kicks. The accuracy and where he can place them without hurting himself is commendable and terrifying as fuck.
And he's a bantamweight. Like, his leg kick seems so heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he has, like, the legs of, like, a middleweight. And he's just kicking
100%.
the shit out of his opponents.
That's what I mean about the bat. Like, you watch him, and it's like, why are his kicks so different than everyone else's? Like, what? Is his leg metal? Like, what is happening?
Dog, anybody with really good kicks will generally have a lot of power in their thighs and in their hips. Like, that's where all of that shit is generated from. And the crazy thing about Martinez is there's no loading up, right? You don't see those kicks coming. He just slams them right into your leg.
Yep.
And it's without any wind up, without being able to read where they're coming from. It can be more difficult, maybe, to Yanez's credit, that maybe that's why he didn't get his legs up in time, right? I mean, after a while, you got to get your fucking legs up. But coming with no telegraph, it is a lot harder to check a kick that you don't see coming than it is when you do.
That's right. Well, congrats to him, man. Jonathan Martinez, who, by the way, also seems like a great fucking guy.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I heard him talking about in his post-fight how he didn't love hearing that his opponent announced was going to be Yanez because they had been pretty friendly during International Fight Week, and they were showing each other pictures of their families and stuff. And but in the ring, or in the cage, it was just business. So that being said, Martinez, he marches on. And let's talk about what could be next for him at bantamweight. Mark?
So it's a little aggressive, maybe, but I believe Song Yadong needs an opponent. Petr Yan has fallen out of that fight. It's an empty main event slot. I know it's a bit of a step down for Yadong when he thought he was going to get a fight with Petr Yan. But, like, who else we got that's hopping in there to save that event? Why not offer that to Jonathan Martinez and put him directly into the fire? What a scrap that fight would be.
Yeah, man. Omar, you have any other ideas for Mr. Martinez?
I actually really don't hate that pick at all. I don't know. I mean, do you think Song Yadong would actually take it? I mean, you'd have to give that kid money. I don't think
Martinez
he would just take
is
it.
ranked 11. It's not like he's like so much lower.
That's true.
I guess. Yeah. I think if I had to choose one that wasn't Song Yadong, I don't know when Homeboy is coming back, but if he is coming back anytime soon, maybe Dominic Cruz against Jonathan Martinez makes a little bit of sense.
Jeez.
I hesitate only because I feel like that might be a career ender for Cruz if he gets his legs completely shattered.
I was going to say, I don't feel
Martinez.
comfortable putting Cruz's legs against Martinez. Like, I just feel like that's irresponsible.
Yeah.
But would Cruz have the footwork to kind of stay away from that?
Maybe.
I'll put it
how
like
many
this, bro.
surgeries has he fucking had on his legs?
The thing is that you can't go into a fight thinking, or even us as bystanders thinking to ourselves, he won't get leg kicked. It's gonna happen. You know it's gonna happen. And even one from Jonathan Martinez could fuck your whole life up.
Yeah.
I can't.
Cruz can fight. I don't feel
Not to mention a dude with known, like, recorded career-ending knee injuries.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about our guy, Adrian Yanez. Omar, what are your thoughts on what could be next for him at bantamweight?
I don't even know, man. I struggle with this one because the fan in me wants to protect him, right? Wants to not give him a wrestler, wants to not give him somebody that's going to kick the shit out of his legs, wants to give him somebody that's going to stand and bang. But the reality is I don't think we can't do that, right? That's not really how this works. So I'm going to give him somebody that I think makes a little bit of sense here. So now I actually have two looking at it. But my first one off the top of my head was actually Ricky Simone. I thought a fight between him and Ricky Simone would be a very fun and a very violent one.
Simone is booked. Remember, you just told us last week he got booked against Mario Bautista.
That is a great fight.
Yeah.
That is a good fight. My backup, and I was just looking here to see If they had fought before, I didn't think they had when they have not. But Chris Gutierrez, who recently just won this past weekend, that might be also a good scrap as well.
Just directly in with the second best leg kicker.
Well, maybe he learned his lesson, man.
What can you do? That's what I'm saying. Like, I there's no way to protect him.
I considered Gutierrez too, and then I had that thought, and I was like, let me not do that. There's a fun fight on Saturday between Javid Basharat and Victor Henry, and I will say the loser of that fight for Yanez.
Very good. All right, moving on. Here we go. In the middleweight division, Michel Pereira wins his middleweight debut against Andre Petroski by TKO. The end coming at 106 of the very first round. Omar, your thoughts of Pereira shining at 185?
Do you guys know what nesting dolls are? Russian nesting dolls?
Yeah.
Obviously. Like if I had a UFC nesting doll, like the outside would be Brock Lesnar, and then I'd open it and there'd be like Yoel Romero, and then I'd open it and there'd be fucking Michel Pereira.
That's actually a great
You know
idea.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Michel Pereira looks terrifying at 185. Like he is huge, absolutely gigantic. Granted, I think we can all agree Andre Petroski may not be the best litmus test for how he will do in that division, but the performance itself of him punching him once in the goddamn face and ending that fight, I mean that's a pretty good indicator that he might do pretty well at 185.
But yeah, Petroski was undefeated. I mean, obviously against working his way up. But.
Yeah, but we knew Petroski didn't really have hands like that, and I didn't expect him to do anything crazy. I wanted to see if he was even able to be able to get inside on the legs on Pereira in the first place. Because forget the striking, Pereira moves around like he's got an infinite gas tank up until you get into the later rounds. So I didn't think he was even going to be able to touch him in that regard up until later on. But we didn't even get that far.
I love that observation. He moves around as though he has a great gas tank.
I said infinite gas tank, sir.
Yes.
Infinite.
What
I'm
was
laughing at the
nesting
as
dolls
though.
thought? Did you ever finish this thought?
Yeah, that's really cool.
What thought?
But you started saying about nesting dolls. What was the relation to Michel Pereira? I don't think you ever connected it.
Just that they're all fucking gigantic brolic dudes. Like if you had a nesting doll of gigantic brolic dudes, like those are the guys that I would think of.
Okay, sorry, gotcha.
I just didn't go to the lower weight classes. I got all the way from Lesnar right to Pereira.
Yeah, thank God I switched to Pereira last minute last week when I was fucking debating this one because, my God, he smoked him. What a debut. I know he got forced up more or less because of his weight cut issues.
100%.
But if you're going to get forced up, that is the way to make sure you're a factor right out of the gate. And no one should be shocked because he's a big, explosive man. He looked, as you said, huge at 185. And Andre Petroski is a guy with clear holes in his striking. And Pereira managed to exploit them right away.
Yeah.
And with that right hand, I don't know if it was always the intention or if it was actually a mid-strike adjustment. If it was mid-strike, it's insane. But the reason that right hand landed is because Pereira loads up and winds up as if it's going to be a hook. And you can see Petroski sees it, puts the left hand up on the side of his head where the hook would be landing, and then Pereira throws it inside as a straight. So I don't know if it was just an odd windup and it was always going to be a straight, or if he possibly saw that and changed it mid-strike. But either way, that's a beautiful shot, and you got to give him credit for dealing with losing the Wonder Boy fight, which was obviously a huge fight for him, being forced to move up a weight class, dealing with a late opponent change, and then coming through the way that he came through.
Amen. All right, with that being said, Mark, staying with you right here, who do you see Pereira fighting next at 185?
I will say give me one of two things. Either A, Nasruddin Imavov, which, is that who he was originally going to fight? Now I'm blanking. I don't know. It might have been.
I don't either, actually. Sounds familiar, but I don't know. So
either that or the winner of Chris Curtis and Marc-Andre Barriault. More so because I was envisioning Curtis, but even if Barrios somehow won that fight and shot himself up the rankings, he is a gas tank guy, so it would still be a test for Pereira.
It would be. Omar, any other thoughts?
Did you say where Pereira entered your rankings? Because I'm assuming he's got to be in the
I did not.
early 20s, late teens.
I believe he's one of my notes in the Prio rankings, but I'll say it now if you wish. Why can't I? Oh, because I'm in welterweight and he's not a welterweight. That would explain it. He is number 18 for me at the moment.
Okay, all right. So I think we should go with the loser of the Cal Borralho and Abus Supian Magomedov fight.
Okay. You guys have anything to say about Petroski? You want to move on to C-Rod and Saaiman?
I had some. Oh, yeah, I know who I had. Give me Hobocop.
Oh, baby.
I think maybe I will go Michel Oleksiejczuk. I think I'll go in that direction.
Nice. Okay. Last one before we hop into the lightning round. Christian Rodriguez defeats another rising prospect in Cameron Saaiman. The scores read after 3 rounds. 30-27, 30-27, and a 29-28. All 3 in favor for the winner, Christian C-Rod Rodriguez. Omar, start this one off. Give us your take of C-Rod getting another scalp of a young up-and-coming guy.
The fight was fun. I enjoyed the technique in that fight. It was a nice stand-up fight, especially coming from, watching Chris Rodriguez work with Raul Rosas Jr. on the ground and doing what he was able to do from the ground, and now seeing him against Saaiman and being able to stand up with Saaiman. I think it's a good testament to his game and how well-rounded he is. But we have to mention that he was crazily out of weight in this fight. He missed weight, I believe, by like 4 pounds or something like that.
I think he gave up at some point.
It's
He
not
stopped
great.
cutting at some point.
It's not great because it's happened against Raul as well. So it's twice in it's twice in a row now that he's missed weight. I think it plays into what's next for him, right? I don't think we can really shoot him up in the rankings in that regard. The dude's actually got to make weight at some point. So I thought it was a great performance, though. Like, if we take away that point, I thought it was a great performance. He did look thicker in there, though, against Saaiman. Saaiman's a little bit taller than him, but it did seem that there was a pretty good size differential in their body types there. But I did think that the rightful winner of that fight was Christian Rodriguez. I thought the striking was just a little bit more on point. I thought his power was a little bit more damaging throughout that fight. And I thought Saaiman had moments in there for sure. I thought the kicks, I think, were working the best for him throughout that fight. But I thought he was just a step behind for the majority of that fight. And I think C-Rod took it home.
Nice. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I got pretty much the same exact take on this one, honestly. Close competitive fight. I just don't love that C-Rod seems to just continually miss weight and give himself that advantage. Not only was it 2 times in a row, it was 3 times in his last 5. So I would like to see him forced up to 145, personally, at least for the time being, until and unless he can prove that he has that under control. Thankfully, I was all ready to bet on Saaiman. I actually loved him in this fight, which I guess I was somewhat wrong about. But once I saw C-Rod missed weight, I never placed those bets. So that was a good thing. But yeah, as much as he did win this fight, it was really competitive throughout. I do wonder what 5 less pounds and the stress of a weight cut would have done to change things, because I felt like he was stronger and it was helping him in the grappling. I felt like he was landing with more pop, and I don't know. I just wonder. Maybe he wins either way. But from what we did see, we got some great scrambles. I do think that Saaiman doesn't lose much here. If anything, I think it's kind of just a learning experience for him. He didn't look bad. But yeah, like Omar said, just a lot of Saaiman shots were lighter touching shots, whereas C-Rod was the one landing with impact. And again, I think the strength helped him in those grappling exchanges. So he looks good again, but we'll see what the future holds.
Okay. Let's talk about that future now. Give me an opponent. Mark, have you thought of an opponent at bantamweight and featherweight for C-Rod?
I went straight featherweight. I'm done with C-Rod at bantamweight. I really hope that he is a featherweight in his next fight. I do think based on his wins, he has earned a name. So I'm half rewarding him, but also moving him up, and I am going to give him Darren Elkins, who also won on this same card.
Okay. Omar?
I was actually going to go with I just lost it. TJ Brown, who recently just lost this past weekend.
To Darren Elkins.
To Darren Elkins, that's right.
Which is the first fight we're talking about in the lightning round.
To the damage. All right. Let's talk about Cameron Saaiman. Omar? Who do you want to see him fight next at bantamweight to get back to his winning ways?
I felt bad for Saaiman, man, because it was a good fight, and I do think the power was really what took over, and it really had to do with the weight cut, or if the weight cut significantly contributed to the fact that he was so much stronger in there than Saaiman was, then that's just balls. I think it'd be interesting to see what Ricky Turcios still has. I don't really know what Ricky Turcios is doing right now. We all know he's a fun guy, but his skills, I think, remain to be seen how solidified they are. We know he's a scrapper. But I think it's clear to say that as of right now, I think he has a pretty low ceiling in the UFC. So I'm trying to see what can Ricky Turcios do to break that glass.
Okay. Mark?
I thought about that same matchup. I ended up going with there's a fight scheduled between John Castaneda and Kyung Ho Kang, and I honestly feel like the winner or loser of that fight makes sense for Cameron Saaiman. It's just a little bit of a more veteran type guy to give him another test after he failed this one. So that's where I'll go.
Okay. And with that being said, let us now dive into our lightning round to finish off this UFC Fight Night card. Let us start things off with Darren the Damage Elkins round 3 submission over TJ Brown. Mark, keep it going.
What a friggin' scrambling exhibition from Darren Elkins. That was unreal. Any positive position that TJ Brown got to was changed to a negative position within 5 seconds. Just a super impressive performance from Darren Elkins. One of the most impressive performances I've ever seen from him. Obviously, we've seen like the blood and guts, crazy comebacks. You can't believe he did it. But this one was just so clean, and skillful. And to see that at this stage of his career, I thought was pretty impressive. So, and he got to finish to top it all off. So yeah, great night for him.
Nice. Omar?
I would agree. Let's not be mistaken. You might have heard Mark's comment about the fight being clean and think Darren Elkins didn't take any damage. It's not how Darren Elkins fights. Darren Elkins definitely walked away from there bloody, just not nearly as bloody as he has been in the past. So, progression, slow steps. It was a great fight, though. It was definitely a great fight. I thought Darren Elkins had his number from early, honestly, from jump. Once he got him down to the ground, I mean, he had him in a rear naked choke early in that fight, even before we got to the finish. Almost had that done, decided he wasn't going to get it, continued to work on him. But once we got to that final sequence, man, that choke was in, and TJ Brown didn't even want to fight it anymore. It honestly seemed like TJ Brown was like, you know what? I'm done here. I want to go. Thought. I fucking want to go home.
It truly did. It looked like he was like, is he going to choke me? Yeah, he is. All right, let me just fucking accept it.
Just fucking done. Okay. It was a good fight, though. Good fight.
Okay, Tainara Lisboa, UD over Ravina Oliveira. Omar, go.
Yeah, this was a weird little fight. Not terribly impressive, if we're being wholly honest, but I did think Lisboa was able to use her ground positions and her ground control to squeak out that fight. I thought the first round was pretty close. I thought the second round was was definitely for Lisboa, and if I remember right, I'm pretty sure Oliveira had the third round in there. But it was a closer fight than it needed to be, but there wasn't as many big moments in that fight to really sway you one way or another in that regard.
Mark?
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty good scrap. Oliveira wouldn't go away. She certainly brought it late, winning round 3. But I did think the first 2 belonged to Lisboa. She had stung Oliveira with some solid shots in the first. She out-wrestled her in the second. And now she's 2-0 in the UFC. So hard to tell how good she may be based on the opponents thus far, but nice start to the career either way.
Okay, let's see. Terrence T-Rex McKinney gets back to his winning ways in style. Another first-round finish, this one in mere moments, defeating Brendan Marat. Mark.
McKinney gonna McKinney. That's what he does, man. If you are beneath his level, you are going to get blitzed and you are going to get hurt. And unfortunately for Brendan Marat, he was, and that's what happened. McKinney has had a weird schedule, a lot of pullouts and random fill-ins like Marat, but he always finds a way to stand out when he gets these guys, and he did it yet again.
Omar.
Yeah, there's a nice flow to the way McKinney fights that I really enjoy. Even when he misses a hook, he uses the missed hook to go for the clinch and then use that clinch to go for the knee. Like, he has a nice little momentum of things. And the guys that I see that really do well, or at least that look like they really know what they're doing, tend to be the guys that are able to find the next move regardless of how the previous move has finished. Because your moves aren't always going to land the way that you want them to land. That doesn't mean that you stop and you can be like, well, damn, that didn't land the way I wanted to, and then just try to figure out from there. So a lot of times you have to flow and you have to keep moving. I have a problem with that. I'm a very big perfectionist, so a lot of times when I throw something, if it doesn't go right, especially when I'm training and I know I'm not getting my ass beat, like, I'll stop and I'll try to think about it. But like, if I'm in a sparring situation or something like that, I'm not going to have the opportunity to do that. And McKinney, I think, is one of the best examples of being able to just flow and take advantage of a position regardless of where your previous position ends you up in. So I loved it. I thought it was great, for as short as it was.
Okay, Melissa Dixon, UD over Irina Alekseeva. Omar?
Yo, somebody get Irina an oxygen tank, dog. That girl was dead by the third round. Hands on hips, went full Nate Diaz on us in that third round. I mean, she could not breathe by the end of that fight. It was. I thought Dixon took a lot of damage in that fight, and I think by the third round, even though she was, I thought she was the fresher fighter, but obviously still pretty worn at that point. But I thought she was worried about taking more damage, because even as gassed as Irina was, the little pot shot she was still hitting her with looked like they were popping Dixon's head back. So she still had power even though she was tired. So Dixon had to fight through a lot of shit in there. She was able to take her down to the ground and really grind her shit out on the ground. So it was a good, hard win from Dixon. But Irina seems like she has potential, but there are a lot of little missing pieces there. Mm-hmm. Like the IKEA thing that just you're missing 2 or 3 screws from the pack and you don't know where they went. So hopefully she figures it out.
Mark?
I agree that Irina has some natural power. And in round one, it looked like we were settling in for a scrap, because Dixon had the jab working. She was landing kind of outpointing her, but then Alekseeva stormed back, lands the huge right. Dixon has to survive it. And I kind of thought the whole fight was going to end up playing out that way. But then Melissa Dixon nixed that thought and really took it over. She took it over with the boxing to start round 2. The jab was working. Then she rocked Alekseeva. And then she took her down and just was kind of able to dominate with the grappling. And in round 3, she had to work a little bit to get back to that grappling. But once she did, it was rinse and repeat all over again. So good win for her. I think it was a nice intro to Melissa Dixon. It was a really well-rounded and aggressive performance from her in her debut.
Okay, 2 more. Here we go. Chris Gutierrez, UD over Alatengili. I hope I'm not butchering that too much. Mark?
Alatengili.
Alatengili, excuse me.
As it turns out, it was butchered quite nicely.
Another fight where the kicks were the story, and he is a training partner and close friend of Jonathan Martinez, so it makes sense. This is what these boys do. But this one was all Chris Gutierrez. He was too fast, too calm, poised, and as explosive as Alateng is, and he was pushing the whole fight.
Yeah.
He just was getting picked apart, and Gutierrez was able to dictate the distance really perfectly and got it done. So a nice bounce back for him after the Munoz loss, and we'll see where he can take it from here.
Omar?
Yeah, Gutierrez is another one, just like Jonathan Martinez, that doesn't telegraph where his kicks go. In his difference, though, is he doesn't really turn his hips over all that much. So a lot of his kicks are very quick, very placed. They don't have as much power as Martinez's does. And I think the big difference is you can see how Martinez was able to wreck Yanez's legs with just a few leg kicks. And Gutierrez spent 3 rounds blasting this kid's leg. His leg was red below, above his knee, on his knee. I mean, he was a completely different color on his leg by the end of that fight. But his leg was still movable. And I think that's really the difference, right? The difference of being able to just sort of whip a kick on somebody's leg and really slamming your leg into somebody's leg. It's a very, very big difference in damage. All that being said, Gutierrez, I thought, did manage the distance perfectly with his legs and really came out on top in a really nice performance.
Okay, last one. Emily Ducote, UD over Ashley Yoder. Omar.
I thought Ducote, I thought Ducote did a really good job here. I don't know if I really felt like she won this fight. If I'm being wholly honest, I thought Yoder was the one who ended up getting 2 out of the 3 rounds. I guess I'd have to go back and rewatch it, but I do remember it being a good scrap, especially for the beginning of the fight, or beginning of the night, I should say. It was a good scrap, but I can't remember if I thought Ducote won that fight. I don't think I did.
Mark, take us home.
I honestly didn't remember feeling very unsure of it. I'd never watched it back, but I did think that round 1 was pretty competitive early, but then I thought it just swung more and more in Ducote's favor as the fight went on. So I thought she definitely got 2 and 3. The read she was able to make, the way she was able to negate Yoder's reach as the fight went on, she was landing to different levels. I thought she pulled away, and she managed to put 2 nasty gashes in Yoder's head with just punches, which you don't see every day. It wasn't even elbows, just punches. Caught her head up bad.
That was
so.
Nasty, yeah.
Ducote needed it, and she got it, and well done for her.
That does it, boys, for our recap portion of this show. Not quite, though. Let's put a bow on this UFC Fight Night by finding out who rose and who fell in Mark's rankings that he meticulously maintains all on his own. Mark?
All right, not a huge update this week.